Okay, how do I get my UK registered car registered here in France? Now, the UK has left the European Union, you know. Brexit. Yeah, well done with that one. Well, you can still do it. That you can. But you're going to have to deal with the French customs, the douane. And the likelihood is you're going to have to pay some duty and tax, VAT. Lovely, eh? Well, there are some exceptions which I will explain in this video. But the first recommendation I would say to you is make sure your car is eligible for registration here in France. Because there are cars that are not. Our friend, for instance, Barry, well, he's passed away now. He had a Mazda. He couldn't get it registered here. Another friend of ours who was a Brexiter, yet they live in France. They had a Mazda van. Yeah, Mazda again. A Mazda van, like a carpet van, one of them long, narrow type vans. Couldn't get it registered. No. And there are other caveats as well, such as kit cars and stuff like that. Bespoke motors and cars that had, customisation. There's going to be another added level of bureaucracy for you. And even then, you might not be able to get it registered. The problem is, though, you pay your import dues at the time of importation. The car won't be registered at that point. No. Well, the process of registration here in France has to be done within 4 weeks. If you're a resident in France, because that's what this video is really aimed at. It's people that live here in France and they want to get their vehicle over that they might have in the UK and they want to get it registered here so they can drive it legally here in France. Because technically speaking, if you live here in France, you're a tax resident here in France, you've got your carte grise and stuff like that, your vehicle has to be registered in France. You can't be going around, driving around on your in your UK registered car. No, that's not legal. So if you're doing that now, you really ought to stop. Now, get all your paperwork sorted out. The whole lot. Get everything sorted out without handing any money over at this stage. And if you're about to buy a British car, UK registered car, I don't think it's even British anymore, is it? Anyway, UK registered car. Make sure before you hand any money over and buying it that it's actually feasible to get it registered here. And can you afford to do so? Now, let's say, for instance, you've got all that sorted. You know what you've got to do. You know what you're up against. And the first thing I would do is make sure the car actually complies. Make sure it's legal for a start. Not just legal in France regarding a CT, for instance, which we'll get into that in a moment. But when you come over, you need to make sure you've got your MOT and you've got to make sure you've got your insurance, a green card insurance, preferably, or evidence of insurance. And that you also got the car that's actually taxed as well. You've got your road fund licence as well. So many people, they try to skip that. They say it's SORN. No. That's the law states that it has to be legal for the country it's from. So, it's not legal to drive on the roads, is it? In the UK, in a SORN vehicle. So it needs to be, mustn't be SORN. It must be a legal vehicle to be driving in the UK, so it can be driven over into France. Now, you're going to need to do your headlights. Make sure your headlights are suitable for left-hand drive. Now, most cars, the fact of the matter is that they won't be. And in the case of putting those little sticky things on the headlights, they're not actually allowed for a control technique. Some control technique stations, they let it through. They shouldn't do, but they do. You might get away with it, but just change your headlights. You'll regret it otherwise, especially when you're driving at night. It's horrendous with those stupid. You got hardly any light for a start. You blocked half of it using those beam bender things. Doesn't work very well. So anyway, so you get your headlights changed. Also, have a look at your tyres. Make sure all your tyres, they comply. Because here in France, if you've got a four-wheel drive, for instance, each tyre is supposed to be of the same make and type. And also, if it's a two-wheel drive, they've got to have the same tyres on the same axle. You can have two Dunlops on the front and two Michelins on the back, for instance. But if it's a four-wheel drive, they've got to be all Michelins or all Dunlops, argument's sake. So, So these are all things you need to do ready to get your control technique, which is the equivalent of an MOT. Now the MOTs here in France, they can range anything from about €60 up to 80 odd euros, but they last 2 years. So I think it's good value. That is good value. So make sure you got all, you need to be able to have everything in place to get that quickly and easily. So make sure your car is MOT'd for start, so you know the car is safe, and the likelihood it'll go through a French CT. So in order to make sure it's legal and original. Now, if for instance you've got a miles per hour speedometer, it needs to be in kilometres per hour. Or dual ones are okay. Where you got the kilometres and the miles, they're generally okay. But what are the documents you need for importation of your vehicle? Well, the document you really need, you need to get yourself the 846A document. It's a tax import certificate, and basically on that it'll state whether or not how much tax you paid on the vehicle, blah 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 blah. Now, before Brexit, there wasn't an issue. You still had to have that form, but you didn't have to go to the customs. No, you had to the douane here in France. So what's going to happen is you're going to come over or get off that ferry with your car. Your next trip needs to be, if you want to get the car registered, that is, needs to be at the douane. And you need to make sure that you've got all your paperwork in order for the registration process. Now, you can download the 846A form orders. I'll leave a link in the description for that. So you can actually get all that, get all your paperwork, everything you need for that form, so you can get from the importation process. Now, then you're going to come across some costs. We'll get into that in a moment, but the other things you're going to need is going to be for the actual registration process. You're not going to get registered unless you've got your everything sort of links together. So until you've got your importation paperwork sorted out, such as the 846A, and you paid all your dues and stuff on importation, which, like I say, I'll tell you at the end of this video what that is. What you need to do is just make sure you've got all your other paperwork ready for immatriculation, basically registration, so you can get your Carte Grise. Now, they're quite funny about the Carte Grise of is when you receive it in the post, it has to be signed for and stuff like that. Yeah, it doesn't just come in the post. The UK system is quite fluffy in that respect. They're quite protective over it here. Very protective. And you're supposed to carry it in your car as well. Once you've got it, you're supposed to carry it in your car. Same with the insurance. Not just the green card in the windscreen. You're supposed to carry the actual original letter that the green card was attached to in the car as well. So you're going to need your passport, obviously. You're going to need your driving licence, obviously. You're going to need proof of residency. And that could be in the form of your annual tax forms, or it could be a recent EDF bill and stuff like that. Just double up on it. Make sure you got more than you need. You don't be at the point of registration and find that you haven't got all your bits and pieces, all your ducks in a row. Now think of it like a big cabinet, with drawers in it. And each one of these things you've got to tick. One of these tick boxes you've got to do, you just close that drawer. You can forget about it for the time being. Because I know for a fact that some people are going to look at this and they're going to think to themselves, oh my God, I can't do that. Well, actually, they're all separate little elements. And as long as you just tick them off one by one, you'll get left with less elements to deal with, and then you can deal with those. So it is just a tick box exercise, and eventually, obviously, the exercise becomes smaller and smaller and smaller until you get to fruition, and at the point of getting your Carte Grise. Obviously, you're going to need your UK logbook, your V5C, and if you, say for instance, you just bought the car in the UK and it's not registered in your name, you're going to need to make sure you've got a bill of sale as well. Otherwise, you're not going to get your 846A either, which is your tax import certificate. So you also need to make sure that the V5C, that you've filled it in for permanent export. Now, if you're buying your car from a dealer and stuff like that, make sure that they've done that for you. It's sold as an export. So all these things, it makes it easier. So you've got your insurance, like saying, and green card. You've got your proof of residency, passport, what have you. And basically have all your documents for importation. Also, what you're going to need is another thing, which is a bugbear for many people, because it just seems absolutely ridiculous, because it's costly. And that's the certificate of conformity, otherwise known as the COC. Now, certificate of conformity basically means that the vehicle's been built to a standard that complies in the European Union. Now, since Brexit, car manufacturers in the UK, they don't actually have to comply with that in the EU, because we're out of the EU. But it'd be very silly for car manufacturers not to, because they won't be able to export their vehicles. So the likelihood is you will be able to get that. But just check, double check that is, that does comply. It's just more headaches, Just make sure that one thing. Think of like playing Jenga with the wooden blocks. If there's one dodgy block there, the whole lot falls down, don't it? Like a house of cards, so to speak. So you got your control technique. You got your certificate of conformity. The certificate of conformity, you'll generally get it from your manufacturer. Now, some places are funny about this. Now, for instance, when I did my motorbike, it was easy. Dead easy. Didn't even cost me a penny. It was free. But when I did it via when I did my transit van, when we first came over, I had to apply to Ford, and they sent me this document. It cost me about £150 or £200, I think it was, for a piece of paper, which was wonky when we got it. It's just like being photocopied and then sent to us. Talk about profiteering. There are other companies that will do it for you as well, but at cost, obviously. Now, most places charge, but when I did my Honda motorbike, my Transalp, when I brought that over, God, luckily that was left-hand drive, and that was free. There was no charge. I just did it. I just had to send him an email with a photo, with a scan of the original document, the V5C, and everything was good. So. It sounds more complicated than what it is. It sounds overwhelming, I must admit. So, now, so basically you got your passport, you got your proof of residency, or driving licence as well, you got your insurance, you got to make sure you got your logbook, preferably in your name, makes it done a lot easier, or the bill of sale, or export certificates and what have you. And you need a certificate of conformity, and then you need your import certificate, which you would have done when you came into the country, the 846A, which now obviously costs because of Brexit. Like I said, I'll get into that in a minute. Now, when you come into France, okay, and you're going to start at the stage of the process of registering the vehicle, you're going to get your CT, and maybe it's failed. For one reason, I know it's failed. Maybe you forgot to do your headlights. Well, something like that, you'll have 2 months to actually to have a retest, so you can drive away. It's not okay. Oh, it's failed. Oh my god, yeah, what do I do now? It's you've got 2 months to do it. If it's something with the brakes and it's dangerous, they will give you 1 day. I know this has happened to me recently with my camper. So before Brexit, the MOTs had crikey. You could come in with the MOT when you're registering a vehicle before Brexit, when you come into France. So you're going through the whole process. You haven't got your control, your CT, your control technique, the French MOT, but you've got your MOT is still valid in the UK. Used to, before Brexit, you'd have 6 months to get that done. Now you don't. That's gone. You don't have 6 months anymore. So you've got to get it done straight away, basically. You've got to get over there and get it done. ASAP. So this also applies to any wheeled vehicles, whether it be motorbikes, what else is there? There's motorbikes, campers, and stuff like that. All that sort of stuff you need to, anything with wheels on that moves, that's on the road, that would have a registration number plate here in France. Even quad bikes and all that sort of stuff. If you intend to drive them on the road, even a tractor. Yeah, even that could be a nightmare. I tell you, I've been there, done that with a little was it a Massey little pony, Massey Ferguson pony. Anyway, or was it a Massey pony? Oh, anyway, it was an old tractor, really old tractor, called Garson. It was. Anyway, so the other complications you're going to have is things if it's a grey import, if it's say a Japanese import or something like that, if it's LPG converted, if it's a camper that was built before 2002, maybe it's a camper conversion that you've done yourself. Mate, you're not going to get registered as a camper unless it is a camper. It needs to be registered as a camper, not a light goods vehicle. So, trailers over 500 kilos, what have you, that's another complication. In some cases, you can get away with just a certificate of conformity. Sometimes you're going to have to go to DREAL, just like you would do if DREAL is basically what they do is they look it over. You make an appointment with DREAL here in France, and they check over the vehicle, make sure it complies, and they're happy with it, and then they'll give you a certificate. It costs you money, obviously, every time you go back to have this done. You've only got to have done once, but if you've got a return, you have to pay again if it fails. And kit cars as well. That'd be the same for kit cars. Now, taxes, the douane, customs. Now, you'll be doing that as you come over. You've got to do all your import duties and stuff like that, just like you would do your booze and all that. But if you've got to pay duties on it, you do it at the douane, you do it at the customs. So the first thing you've got to do when you come off the old ferry, you need to head down to the douane, right? And that's where you make sure you get all your 846A form done and what have you. And maybe that's where you'll get yourself a Frontier. If you've got the insurance valid for here in France, you'll get your Frontier's insurance. That'll be for 30 or 90 days. I can't remember how much that costs, but I dare say it's online somewhere. Well, now, there are some caveats with this. In some instances, you can get away with not paying any or reduced, customs duties and VAT. Now, argument's sake, if it's a classic car, the VAT is reduced to 5.5%, and you pay no duty on the classic car coming into France. It needs to be over 30 years old, but for that to comply. That'd be the case. Now, there are other instances as well. Like for instance, if you've if it's an old car and you've owned it for at least 6 months, and when you're moving over here to France, you declared it on your inventory, right? This is if you come over post-Brexit, since the 1st of January 2021. Yeah. Well, the duty, though, is, crikey, the duty is 10%. 10% duty. You've heard that figure before about the car manufacturers whinging because of Brexit, subject to 10% duty and rules of origin and all that. But also you're going to be charged 20% VAT. That's 30% of the value of the car, and they will value the car, not you. It isn't how much you paid for it; it's what they'll consider that car is to be worth, and that'll basically be a bit jobs worthy, where they'll just go onto a website and put in the car, and they'll say, "Well, this is what it's worth." Pretty much what they'll do. So, what you value for and what they value for, we say, and French car prices are not the same as what they are in the UK. So you might end up and spend way more for the car than its value, even in France. So, if you're talking about 30%, if it's a £1,000 car, well, it's going to cost you like 300 odd, €300, isn't it? Just some tax on that. Now, a car that you might pick up for under 500 quid in the UK, you're going to pay, 1,500 to 2,000 in France if you've got an old bang of, for an old runaround. Cars here, second-hand market for cars here in France are high. Plus, the mileage is high. The French people tend to hold on to their cars much longer than what we do in the UK. They do, they really do. There's some real beat-up pieces of rubbish kicking about here, I'll tell you. You just don't go anywhere near them. That's might be one of the reasons why some people try and import their car. But also you've got to remember, obviously the steering wheel's on the wrong side, on a UK registered car, the right-hand drive. Now, if, for instance, you've owned the car for over 12 months, while it's in the UK, you might get away with an exemption on the taxes. Could be zero. You might get away with it. There's so many caveats. You need to look at your details, and I'm not going to get into it here because it's just too. The video will be way too long. It's long enough as it is. So, so basically, if you import a car, an old car, it's going to cost you 10 to 20%. So 10% duty and 20% VAT. But if you want to import a new car, the duty on that, is going to be between 10 and 20%. I would say 15% or whatever it might be on a new car. And regarding the taxation on that, you might get away with a tax treaty on that. There probably won't be any VAT that you'll have to pay. You might get away with that one. That's why you got to get you got. The best way to do it is buy it from a dealer, a reputable dealer, so you can get everything, all your paperwork sorted out. So and there are actually firms in the UK that specialise in exporting cars into France. So that might be something to consider. Obviously, it comes with an additional cost. But just remember, if you live here in France, just like myself, technically I can't drive a car that I own that happens to be UK registered. It's not legal for me to do so. It must be French registered. Or at least going through the process of being registered. Because once you get that, when you first make that start, you'll get a certificate to say that you've made that start. Now, most of this is actually done online, not at the douane. You've got to do that when you arrive, the customs paperwork, what have you. But everything else is done on the ANTS website. I think it's probably ANTS.gouv or something it is .fr. But yes, it's all done online. That simplifies things, but also complicates things, especially when they don't get your flipping name right on the tax forms. For me, for instance, on my taxes, it says, my name is Dan Marcus, that's what my name is, Marcus, fine, perfect. Yeah, if I go into my business taxes, it says my name is Marius, and I've been up there, I've sent them emails, we're dealing, blah, blah, it still hasn't changed. I've been here 13 years and they still haven't changed it. Welcome to France. It's just how it is. Bureaucracy, you see. Eventually, everything meets up, you see. But I know. I've told them. I've got all the communications there. Where they've spoken, they told me, we did. It's gone to our technical department. There was solicitors, and then nothing happens. It's mind-numbing. Now, before it all went online, you could use your prefecture, which is like an office for all legal paperwork and stuff like that you get sorted out. So you go to your prefecture and you take all your bundle of paperwork to there, or your sous-prefecture, which is like a sub-branch of the prefecture, such as for us, we've got one in Limoges that we can go to, in Saint-Junien, or we can go to our local one, which is in Rochenchois. But most of them are closed down now anyway, and the sous-prefectures, they don't have that purpose. They're not used for that. It's all done online. So when Emmanuel Macron came into power, he basically tried to streamline the very costly bureaucracy here in France. Anyway, maybe you have had experience of registering a motor vehicle, or imported a motor vehicle from the United Kingdom into France. Well, I'd like to hear from you. I would. I really like to, what's your experience? Now, although I've imported several vehicles here, and motorbikes and stuff, and for friends and family as well, helped them out, but when it comes down to, since Brexit, I haven't had to deal with that one yet. Not yet. I probably wouldn't, no. I would, quite frankly, say, hang on, what is the point? With all this additional cost, all this bureaucracy, all this hoop jumping, I don't think I can be bothered. So I'll just buy a car here instead. You tell me. Leave it in the comments down below. And I'm going to make some more videos on these sort of topics as well. Just things, my own experiences really. Things that I've had to do in the past. And I'm going to share it with you. Obviously I'll have to research it as well. Make sure things hadn't changed. Because things are always changing. Which I've done in this case. Just make sure that, that I was correct. Yeah, on the old French website, as you do, the one with the lady. Anyway, you tell me. Please leave it in the comments down below. And if you find these sort of videos helpful, let me know, And if you want to support the channel, you can do it on Patreon or buy us a coffee. And the links down below. Just helps us keep pumping out content, you see. And, if not, just boop the old like button, just comment down below because it really helps the channel, that it does. Anyway. You have a lovely day. And if you've got any questions, just ask. Ta-ta.